Hello friends, in this lesson we're going to talk about pronouns. A pronoun is a word that takes the place of a noun or a noun phrase. For example, a lot of people use Twitter. So if we look at this sentence, a lot of people is a noun phrase. Now if we wanted to replace this noun phrase with a pronoun, we would use they. So a lot of people is plural and is third person, so it becomes they. So they use Twitter. And that's what pronouns do. They just take the place of nouns or noun phrases, which often makes it easier to say what we're saying because then we don't have to keep repeating a lot of people, a lot of people, a lot of people. In English, we have different types of pronouns. We have personal pronouns, possessive pronouns, reflexive pronouns, reciprocal pronouns, indefinite pronouns, and demonstrative pronouns. Now I'm going to go through and explain each of these different kinds with some examples so you can see what they mean. First are personal pronouns. These ones are very familiar to everybody because this is usually how we learn verb conjugation and grammatical person. So with personal pronouns, we have subject pronouns and object pronouns. So subject pronouns will come before a verb in a sentence. So if your pronoun is coming before a verb, then you would use I, you, he, she, or it, we, you, or they. Now if you look here, you see you and you. The nice thing about you, which is the second person, is that it doesn't matter whether it's singular or if it's plural. It's always you. You doesn't change. So if the pronoun, the personal pronoun, is coming before a verb, then we're going to be using one of these forms of the pronoun. However, if the personal pronoun comes after the verb or after a preposition, then we would use the object form. So before the object form, we would have either a verb or a preposition. And then we would have the object pronoun. So the object pronouns are me, you. See, again, you doesn't change whether it's subject or object. That's the easiest one. Him, her, or it. Us, you, and them. So let's look at these in some example sentences. So we have the sentence, I know you. Now my verb here is know. So I is the subject, know is the verb, and you is the object. Now again, you doesn't change. It doesn't matter where it is in the sentence. It's always you. However, if you look at the second sentence, do you know me? So here, you is the subject of the verb know. And me is the object of know. So here, where it is the subject, it is I. Here, where it is the object, it is me. Likewise, if we look at these sentences, if I say he loves her, he is my subject, loves is my verb, and her is the object. So her is the object of a verb, loves, and he is the subject of the verb, loves. Now let's switch the order. But does she love him? So if you look here, she love him. This is the same thing here, except we've reversed who's the subject and who's the object. So her becomes she because she is the subject of the verb love. Now he becomes him because him is now the object of the verb love. So he before the verb, him after the verb, she before the verb, her after the verb. Now, here's one that gets confused a lot, especially by native speakers. When we have somebody else with I, we have you and I, or we can have you and me. So which one is it? Is it you and I, or is it you and me? Well, it all depends on where it's at in the sentence. It's not that you and I sounds better. It just depends on where it is. So if you look here, you and I is the subject of can share. So can share is my verb. So you see I is coming before the verb. That's why we're using I. So you and I can share this ice cream, but don't tell the kids. Let's keep it between you and me. Now if we look over here, me, we're using the object form, you and me. Why is that? Because if you look at you and me, it's coming after the preposition between. So as I said before, if it comes after a verb or after a preposition, we use the object form of the pronoun. The next group of pronouns are called possessive pronouns, and you can see from the picture here what we mean by possessive. So the possessive pronouns are mine, yours, his or hers, ours, yours for the plural, and theirs. Now you'll notice we don't have its here because we don't really use its as a possessive pronoun. It just doesn't usually function that way in a sentence. So you're probably never going to hear it that way. So let's look at some examples of the possessive pronouns. For example, these kids aren't mine. So the word mine here is a pronoun. It's taking the place of a noun phrase. What is the noun phrase it's taking the place of? My kids. So I could say, those kids aren't my kids. Or I could just say, those kids aren't mine. So mine is a pronoun. It's taking the place of my kids. And you see my kids is a possessive noun phrase because my kids, they belong to me. Next sentence, I don't know whose they are. So whose here is a possessive pronoun, but we use it in questions. Or here we're using it as a relative pronoun or a connector. Basically, this whose is connecting they are to the verb over here, don't know. They must be yours. They must be your what? Your kids. So here, yours is a pronoun taking the place of your kids. So I could say they must be your kids, or I could say they must be yours. Now if you look here at the word my and the word your, these are actually a different kind of word. They're called possessive determiners, and we'll talk about that in another lesson. Is that car alarm ours or theirs? So ours here is a pronoun replacing our alarm. Or theirs. And theirs is replacing, you probably already know, their alarm. So the sentence could be, is that car alarm our alarm or their alarm? But if we do that, it just seems like too many words, and it's kind of weird to say it that way. It's more work. By using the possessive pronouns instead, it becomes much easier to say, is that car alarm ours or theirs? The next group of pronouns we're going to look at are reflexive pronouns. Now, if you look here in the picture, this boy is looking in the mirror. When he looks in the mirror, he sees himself, right? So he sees himself. The word for that is a reflection. He sees his reflection. But we use the word himself, which is a reflexive pronoun, because he is the subject. He sees is the verb, and himself is the object. So when the subject and the object are the same, we use these reflexive pronouns. So the reflexive pronouns are myself, yourself, himself, herself, or itself, and these are all singular. Now they change once we flip to the plural. Ourselves yourselves, and themselves. These ones are plural. So notice the singular self changes to the plural selves once we start using the plural reflexive pronouns. So myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, ourselves, yourselves, themselves. So how do we use these? For example, people sometimes talk to themselves when they are alone. So here, people is the subject, the verb is talk, and the object here is themselves. So because the people and themselves are the same people, we use the reflexive pronoun over here. So people sometimes talk to themselves when they're alone. I know I do. I just can't help myself. So here, the subject is I. The verb can't help. And the object of the verb is myself. So you see, because the subject I and myself are the same, then I use the reflexive pronoun. I don't say, I just can't help me. I say, I just can't help myself. By the way, I just can't help myself. This is a phrase that we use whenever there's something that we enjoy doing and we can't really stop ourselves from doing it. For example, if I smell fresh brewed coffee, I just can't help myself. I have to have a cup. I think we do it to make ourselves feel like we are not alone. So here we have the first person plural, we, which is the subject. We have this infinitive verb to make, and the object, ourselves. So we see here the subject and the object are the same person or people. So we're using the reflexive pronoun ourselves. Do you ever talk to yourself? Now, if I look at this, I know here you is singular because we're using yourself, which is the singular form. So you is the subject, talk is the verb, and yourself is the object. Because the subject and the object are the same person, we use the reflexive pronoun for the object, yourself. And a couple more examples. My 3-year-old wants to do everything by herself. So here's another reason we use reflexive pronouns. It's what we call an intensifier. So my 3-year-old daughter, she wants to do everything by herself. So we're using this phrase by herself to emphasize that nobody else is helping her. So if you are sitting somewhere and you are alone, you can say, I sat there alone, or you can say, I sat there by myself. If you say by myself, you're emphasizing or making stronger the fact that it was only you and nobody else. Or let's say you do something without any help and you're very proud of it. You can say, I did it all by myself. I wish my kids would clean up after themselves. So my kids are the ones making the mess and they need to clean up themselves. So this is the third person plural form of the reflexive pronoun. The next group we're going to look at is a real simple group. They're called reciprocal pronouns. Reciprocal pronouns. So something is reciprocal when the action is going both ways. So the reciprocal pronouns are each other and one another, and there's really no difference between them. They mean the exact same thing. So you can pretty much use either one of them if you want to use one. Sometimes one another sounds a little bit more formal, but it doesn't have to be that way. So if you look at this picture here, we see two children. They're hugging each other. So I hugged her, she hugged me. So you see the action is going both ways. I hugged her and she hugged me. So they're both hugging each other. They're both subject and object. So we can say, we hugged each other. So what did we do here? Instead of having I as a subject and her as the object, or she as the subject and me as the object, we just combined these two together. I and her becomes we. The verb was hugged. It's the same. So we hugged, and we use the reciprocal pronoun each other, or we hugged one another. Both of these sentences, we hugged each other and we hugged one another, they have the exact same meaning and pretty much the exact same feeling as well. So reciprocal pronouns are when the action is going both ways. The next group are called indefinite pronouns. So the word definite means something that's sure, exact, specific. So if I say indefinite, in here means not. So indefinite means not exact, not specific. So we use these pronouns when we're not talking about anybody specific or anything specific. The indefinite pronouns are anyone or anybody, someone or somebody, everyone or everybody, no one or nobody. And these are the same. If I say anyone or anybody, they're the exact same. All we're doing is we're changing one and body. They both mean a person. For things, we say anything, something, everything, or nothing. So, for the indefinite pronouns, I could say, did you buy anything at the store? No. Somebody bought all the toilet paper, paper towels, meat, eggs, rice, and pasta. Everything we needed. Nobody needs that much toilet paper. Everyone has gone crazy. So here, did you buy anything? So I'm using anything because I'm not sure if there was anything that this person bought. So I don't see them carrying anything. Maybe they came home and then they had nothing, right? So I think, I don't know, maybe they did buy something, it's still in the car. So I say, did you buy anything at the store? No, somebody bought all the toilet paper, paper towels, meat, eggs, rice, and pasta. So here I'm using somebody, not anybody. Because if I say anybody, that means I don't know if there is somebody. But if all of these things are gone, right, obviously somebody bought them. I just don't know who that person is. So I say somebody when I know that one person did it, but I don't know who that person is. If I say anything, I don't know that anything exists. Now, if I see you come in the door and you're carrying something, but I don't know what it is, I would say, did you buy something at the store? But if I don't see anything, I say, did you buy anything at the store? Everything we needed. So everything means all of the things. Nobody needs that much toilet paper. So nobody means not anybody, not anyone, not a person. And everyone has gone crazy. So that means all of the people. So to explain the differences here, let's look at these sentences. Anyone can do this, everyone can do this, someone can do this, or no one can do this. So if I say anyone can do this, that means one person and it doesn't matter who. If I say everyone can do this, that means all of the people. If I say someone can do this, it means one person and it's a specific person. So the difference here between anyone and someone is that anyone is not specific. It doesn't matter who, and someone is at least one person, although we're not saying who. And no one can do this means it's not one person. So the next group we're going to look at are called demonstrative pronouns. So demonstrative comes from this verb to demonstrate. So to demonstrate means to show something. Like if you look here in the picture, the woman is pointing at some fruits at a market, which you probably already know, but this is how they point in East Asia. I don't know if this is how they point in your culture as well. Like if you went to Korea or Japan and you pointed with your finger, it would be considered rude. So they point with their hand open like this. Anyway, So a demonstrative pronoun is basically like a pronoun that's pointing at something. So the demonstrative pronouns are this, these, that, and those. For example, what's that? So here, that means that thing. So I could say, what's that thing? Or I can just say, what's that? So the word that is taking the place of that thing. This is hand sanitizer. So again, this thing. So this thing is hand sanitizer. So this and that are singular. Where did you manage to find those? So here, those is replacing those items or those things. And if we look up here, what are they talking about? They're talking about the hand sanitizer and the toilet paper. So it's more than one thing, it's plural. So if we look back here, these and those, these are plural. So this is singular, these is plural. That is singular, those is plural. So I can say, where did you manage to find those? I had to sell my car to get these. So the difference here, where did you manage to find those? This means that I am not next to them. I am away from the things that I'm talking about. So maybe I'm on one side of the room and you're on the other side of the room. So I would say those, but if you're holding them, then you would say these, because we only really have two directions. If it's near to you, you say this or these. If it's away from you, you see that or those. Now, in some languages, if it's away from both me and you, like somewhere else, there's another word for that. But in English, we would just say like that over there or those over there. So if you want to emphasize that it's something away from both of you, then you would say just over there, that over there, or those over there. All right, so those are our pronouns. We've got subject pronouns, object pronouns, possessive pronouns, reflexive pronouns, reciprocal pronouns, and demonstrative pronouns. Thanks for watching.